I think this week is going to be crazy for AMD stock investors, especially because there is an event that could share some amazing news. Let's take a closer look in today's episode. All right, welcome to another AMD Weekly, where we take a closer look at weekly news impacting AMD from the bullish and the bearish takes. I think this is week 13 or 14. I can't believe we've been doing it this long. Thank you for the support. Thank you for those that have been watching the video. And hopefully everybody has had a great weekend with the overall family. So these past 5 days was a bit of a turmoil or a lot of volatility here in the semiconductor and AI industry. And AMD, due to the correlation of this market, has seen some of that negativity as well. So we're talking a little bit about that, but we see AMD at one point hit around $196. Now, I am a purchaser of AMD in the low 200s, and I'm pretty excited about the long-term opportunity. Now, this is a stock. Obviously, I'm buying. I mentioned I'm buying at these levels, but a majority of my position. And if you've been following these videos, we've talked about AMD in the low 100s, right, and even below the $100. So it's crazy to see that I'm still so bullish on this company that I'm willing to buy at these levels. The first thing that we saw on November 24th was AMD powers frontier AI training for Zyphra. So Zyphra Saya 1 becomes the first large-scale mixture of experts model trained entirely on AMD's Instinct MI300X GPUs, AMD Pensando networking, and ROCm open software solution. So this is, for those that are not familiar with this program, Zyphra is a company that is trying to build an open source AI research and product company based in San Francisco. And earlier on October 1st, there was a partnership with AMD, IBM, and Zyphra to kind of build this AI infrastructure for that company to do training of frontier multimodal foundation models. And they were going to be trained on AMD's MI300X GPUs. Fast forward now to the end of November, it seems like that is happening. Now, Zyphra recently closed on October about a $1 billion valuation to build a leading open source, open science, super intelligence lab focused on advancing fundamental innovations in neural network architectures. So this overall agreement is to use AMD's MI300X GPUs, and the initial deployment was made in September with plans of expansion in 2026. Now, this isn't something that, in my opinion, should move the stock independently of the news. It's more the meat behind it, right? You're seeing now more people starting to train certain models. Maybe it's not as crazy models as obviously the frontier models from the big giants, but still you have a use case and you have an attractiveness for maybe smaller frontier models impacting this overall industry. And to see actual training being done is pretty exciting. Now, I also want to take a close. So that was the first news. Then I want to look at forward PE ratio. Right now, AMD is trading at 39.21. It is a little bit higher compared to its median. And here we're looking till from 2019 and on, so about 6 years, right? And it's only trading marginally. What's that? Maybe like 10, 15% compared to its overall median. And that's the company has seen massive opportunity in the future. I mean, that OpenAI deal that isn't really going to take place starting until the second half of next year, right? The opportunity, I believe this forward PE ratio is going to start to get a lot smaller and a lot smaller as we start to include the quarters and a lot of those quarters that have a lot of those OpenAI deals. So if the OpenAI deals do come to fruition, which I do believe they are, and AMD continues to grow with their MI450, I think this forward PE multiple is going to start to look even crazier and more attractive. Now, if this is your first time here, all the charts that I usually pull out, and I use this platform on a daily basis, fiscal.ai/Jose, they are having a Black Friday sale right now, and I do believe it ends in a few days. They only have 2 sales a year. Check them out, fiscal.ai/Jose. You get 30% off any plans. I use this platform on a daily basis for getting research, getting data, getting slides, and so much more. Now, I want to talk what I'm actually excited about. So November 26th of 2025, AMD is expected to be at AWS reInvent 2025. For those that are not familiar, AWS reInvent is where AWS, aka Amazon, talks a lot about their cloud solutions. They kind of announce new partnerships, they announce their new chips during this time frame, they announce updates to their overall data center, right? Because that's what AWS is run on. So from December 1st to December 5th, AWS returns to Las Vegas, bringing together over 70,000 cloud enthusiasts for the industry's largest AWS event. This year promises groundbreaking announcements, hundreds of technical sessions, and unparalleled networking opportunities. As a strategic partner to AWS, AMD is excited to be a diamond sponsor. Now, this is what gets me pretty excited. Right now, AWS pretty much only uses AMD's CPUs for their workloads and for their clouding solutions. But here, through AMD CPU and GPU technologies powering Amazon's EC2 instances, organizations gain high performance compute for AI high performance computing and enterprise workloads. They also mention step into the world of generative AI with an interactive experience that transforms you into the lead character of a custom movie poster powered by AMD Instinct GPUs and Amazon EC2 MA8 featuring 5th generation AMD EPYC processors. So it seems pretty interesting that we did see a little bit more of GPU announcements here. We also talk about the MI Instinct GPUs, something that Amazon isn't using at the moment in forms of these massive AI workloads, right? They're not using the MI300, they're not using the MI350. Is this going to be the moment we hear maybe a partnership with AMD GPUs entering the AWS market? If it does happen, that would be extremely, extremely bullish. At the same time, maybe I'm just reading too much into it, as obviously AMD and their CPU products are used dramatically through a lot of the instances Amazon has. So worst case scenario, we still just stay with the AMD CPU, which is obviously bullish. And we're going to look at some of the numbers in a bit of them kind of comparing their CPUs to competitors. Best case scenario, we actually get a great partnership with Amazon, which I personally believe is not priced in at the moment. It's definitely not priced in. If we do see that, I could see a nice day for AMD overall. Now, there is another event happening on December 3rd. On December 10th, 3rd, which is this upcoming week, AMD is going to be at the UBS 2025 Global Technology and AI Conference. Now, if you are part of the community at What the Chip Happens, these are the deep dives I'm going to be working on this week. On Tuesday, we have Marvell Q3 earnings. On Tuesday, we also have NVIDIA at UBS. On Wednesday, we have NBIS at UBS, and we also have AMD at UBS. So these are 4 things that I'm going to provide some deep dives on the What the Chip Happened community. Now, if you're not familiar with What the Chip Happened community, is my inner circle, deep dives on semiconductor and AI stocks. You get detailed episode slides. If I do a monthly live Q&A sessions, you also have new AI agents. I've added new technology into the community. And right now, I have a 33% off annual subscription using the code CYBER. So check out whatthechip.happened.com. Now, if you just want free stuff, check out, just make sure to hit the thumbs up and the subscribe button. I'm trying to hit 85,000 subs by the end of the year, but I don't think I'm going to get there. Regardless, I'm still trying and I'm still grinding it out with nearly daily coverage on popular semiconductor companies. Now that we know all these events, AMD on November 25th of 2025 announced a little bit more updates on their EPYC CPUs. So they talk about the industry's response to our 5th gen AMD EPYC processors launched in late 2024 has been nothing short of phenomenal. We're incredibly grateful to our partners and customers for their continued support, which has helped AMD EPYC surpass 40% server CPU market share in just a few short years. And in this post, they kind of talk about how AMD is competitive against Intel's Xeon and ARM-based alternatives. They're pretty much just showcasing how much better they are. So I'm not going to go through the whole list, right? But throughout, if one is curious about the CPU market and some of the competitive levels, here AMD compares their EPYC 905, various versions, the competitive versions, and compare it to one, the Xeon 6, which is Intel, and Graviton 4, which is Amazon's AWS ARM-based CPU. And in a lot of instances, you're going to go through a lot of these instances, AMD EPYC 905, which is the 5th generation, is outperforming all of them, right? It's very, and in certain workloads, and this is the difference between ARM and x86. There might be certain workloads where you don't really see an ARM application being used for it, not supported by Graviton, right? So there is that competitive landscape with ARM, but just looking at some of these charts, it showcases, oh, look, it's actually not that great for these types of products or for these types of decision. And overall, AMD is better than Xeon, and it is better than Graviton in a lot of workloads. Now, obviously, these are picked by AMD, so there could be other workloads where Graviton outperforms AMD and Intel, right? But overall, it's just a great use case to look around and to kind of see the performance on those selected workloads. Now, I want to talk about kind of the bearish thing that's happening in AMD. So right now, I want to say there's two bearish sentiments impacting the overall industry. The first thing is just this negative sentiment towards AI, right? The AI bubble, OpenAI, kind of handling and holding this AI structure with a company that's not really making money. Then the second thing is this week, we saw a revive of ASICs being a threat to GPUs. Obviously, we saw Google take Google chips kind of being seen as a competitive pressure to NVIDIA, and AMD investors, maybe Wall Street, figured that if it's bad for NVIDIA, it also means it's going to be bad for AMD. Because if you're looking for an alternative right now in forms of sales, AMD is still number 2. So if there is another competitor, wouldn't that be worse for number 2 first than for number 1? So the market has been a little bit floppy here. Overall, I don't think TPUs are much of a threat just yet. Maybe in the future that might change. But right now, at the rate that both AMD and NVIDIA are innovating, I'm not too worried, but I can understand the optics behind it. Now, we might continue to get more negative sentiments like this, especially as we are in this AI fear session right now. I think that's where we're at right now. Any negative news in the AI market continues to drive a lot of these stocks down. So I think that trend could continue unless we get that AWS partnership. Now that would be amazing, and I think could create a nice reversal for AMD. Now, outside of this, the following slides that I want to show are AMD kind of showcases how their GPUs are great for different types of training. If been seen, they even talk about how exploring gameplay video generation with AI. So there's still so much things that AI hasn't done. Imagine being able to create your own video game with AI could create a multi-billion-dollar opportunity. And AMD is just showcasing here. They're also giving a lot of tutorials on how to use AMD's hardware and software solutions for different types of fine-tuning of open source models. They talk about one for robotics. They talk about one for proteins, the healthcare market. They talk about one for different styles of training, a practical guide here to expert parallelism. So these blogs, while they aren't things that should move the stock price, it gives you that indication that AMD is very serious about developing their software stack, about educating the ecosystem and trying to bring more developers into their platform. And that overall, in the long term, can be a very, very bullish case. So that's all I have here for AMD. Again, make sure to check out fiscal.ai/Jose for 30% off. And if you want to be part of the inner community, make sure to check out whatthechip.com and use code Zyphra to get that 33% off the annual subscription. So take care, have a good day, and see you all next time.